Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you're having a wonderful, spectacular beginning of the week. I know it's Monday. It's always hard to come in after a weekend, but sometimes you get to come in and listen to us. So I'm grateful that you're coming to listen to Act 3 today in my Zoom booth, Chili radio station. In the Zoom booth with me today, I have Ceri Peasey. She is with, and this is a mouthful, so if I don't get it right, we know that it's part of my nature, the Hamilton Wetlands and Forest Preservation Society, otherwise known as the HWFDPS. Welcome to the program, Ceri. How are you?
Almost perfect. Almost perfect.
Almost perfect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It is a mouthful, but it's also, I am to understand, it's the largest wetland between Nanaimo, Cumberland, Point Alberni, and just a few minutes from Qualicum Beach. Tell us how you got involved in this group and all about the marsh.
Okay. Okay. I've been at it for 20 years, so I have a lot of data. Our website says a lot of it. We gathered reports. We created the website. I've been in various iterations of our group. For example, we started under the Friends of French Creek Conservation Society as a committee, and then we branched out on our own a few years ago. So for me, Hamilton Marsh was a real game changer. I was a happy little consumer. Sun was shining, water was coming out my tap. What could these environmentalists be kvetching about?
Really? Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
problem? So when I discovered Hamilton Marsh, we had our neighborhood had been logged recently, and I saw the ribbons go up on Hamilton Marsh, and I thought, well, no. And so I,
Ah,
but I'm not an activist by nature. But I called up a friend, and all of a sudden, all these reports were coming to me. The fact that it was the largest wetland in the area, that it was the most prolific waterfowl brood marsh, that it was a dragonfly study had been done there, that most of the wetland itself is peat, which is the most effective carbon sink.
mm,
And I looked at all this and I looked at the size of it, and right away I asked more questions like who owns it and what government is in charge of it. And so I found out it was part of the E&N land grant. And at the time, I don't know if it was Weyerhaeuser that owned it, but it's been through a few hands since then. Macmillan Bloedel, Weyerhaeuser, Brascan, and now, of course, Island Timberlands. So I was very engaged in connecting with people because that's my natural thing. And so I found out as much as I could, and I gave a presentation to the regional district of Nanaimo. It was kind of funny because I'd never done that before. And so I thought, well, I can't possibly look like an environmentalist or they'll never listen. So I straightened my hair, I put on a black suit, I had a PowerPoint, and I marched on in. And I was so naive that I figured if the local government knew all the things about it, that they would just fix it
yeah.
like that, right? And it's never that easy. And that we did come close to a deal. I think it was in 2007. We're not at the table. This is something that is in camera
Mhm.
with various vested parties. And so the deal fell through. Like the deal was really fast after my engagement in it, and it fell through. And I was, oh, so crestfallen. I was just devastated. It
Yeah.
turned out to be a good thing because later on I realized they were only looking at the wetland and a generous buffer to the road. And so I've been told all these years when I'm talking too fast. I
It's okay.
warned you. I'm an encyclopedia, and I just go boom.
Oh no, I'm so excited. This is good.
Yeah. So anyway, we in that time we presented to all the different groups, RDN, Qualicum Beach, Parksville, in the early days. We had a declaration of support to find alternatives to logging. We got 4,000 signatures that went to Victoria, and we
Wow.
did a lot of things. And we've held with the Brant Wildlife Festival, we hold an annual tour, and
Mhm.
we've been doing that for 20 years, and just a lot of things. And yeah,
So
so
it's funny because what I remember about our previous conversation, because you had been on my previous program called Wise Folks, and you had brought in the Brant, the wild birds. And I was curious about the connection between, so I'm glad you said that because I am curious about the connection between Marsh and that other group. Are they under the same umbrella at all, or are they
so
separate?
at that time, the Brant Wildlife Festival was run by Nature Trust of BC,
I see.
and the Brant are actually shorebirds. But what it really is a celebration of nature, and
Mhm.
that's what we got our tours in. And there's lots of tours like and events. So I
Yeah,
hope.
which it's very important because a lot of people don't know what a marsh is and why it's so important ecologically. That I don't know if that was the mouthful I wanted it to come out, but ecologically speaking,
Mhm.
why are marshes so important? What is a marsh for those that don't really understand it being more than a bog or more than a
Yeah.
place for nature to collect?
So the wetlands, in many ways, are the lungs of the earth. The one that we're looking at specifically, and I believe there's different kinds of wetlands, but this one, it holds water in times of drought, and it also mediates water in times of flooding. It is so it it means so much to wildlife, starting with the insects, because the insects are the bottom of the food chain.
Mhm.
It filters water. It's amazing. Well, I'm trying to remember the phrase, wetlands as infrastructure. So different parts of the world have determined that wetlands are in fact an infrastructure. And this one is the largest body of water in the French Creek watershed, on which thousands rely. And I mean, there are no reasons not to save it, right?
Absolutely, a
The
thousand
water,
percent.
yeah, the water, the wildlife, and the future. But just to press a point, going back, when it was drawn to my attention that the first negotiation that fell through was for a wetland and a buffer. A bunch of us put our heads together and said, that's no good. You've got to preserve the entire 360 hectares.
Yeah,
And we're doing that because there are vernal pools that are important. There's anyway, so many things.
so
And
many
so,
things. Yeah.
but I was told over and over again, it's not realistic. You can't preserve that much. You can't, and it's just short of the size of Stanley Park. And in my mind, I thought, I don't care if we can or we can't. We put our heads down and tell everyone why it's important to preserve the entire 360 hectares. So when we got the word from the RDN that that is the deal on the table, oh, the feelings.
No kidding. Yeah, yeah. So you were actually able to save the wetlands.
So the way it stands, it's a conditional agreement, and
Okay.
with Island Timberlands slash Mosaic and the RDN. In order to complete the deal, we have to come up with 7.5 million beyond that. And these details will be on the website. And so there'll be a lot of fundraising going on. And we, of course, can't possibly hope to raise even $1 million, but we will be the catalyst and the story behind it. And we have a lot of
Mhm.
partners. But unless that money comes through, whether it's through government agencies or whatever, the whole thing could fall to the ground. It could just be over.
Why so much money? I mean, $7 million is a lot of money. And respectfully, is it for staffing to keep the marsh? Is it for infrastructure
No.
to
So
build up the marsh?
the actual cost is 30 million for
Wow.
the entire 360 hectares. And that's based on the real estate values and timber values and all of that. And so
Mhm.
that's the total amount. And it's the 7.5 that we have to come up with. As I mentioned, it's just short of the size of Stanley Park.
Yeah.
It's located in I think, a lucrative area for real estate, like 5 minutes from Qualicum Beach. And we weren't at the table, so there's some details we're not entirely clear on.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
the thought, because 20 years is a long time to be committed. And I am very driven to make sure this gets completed because I don't want to spend another 20 years doing it.
Complete. I mean, the logic is there.
Yeah.
It's wildlife. It's, as you put it so eloquently, the lungs of our environment. I mean, we really need to pay attention to a body of land and property like that in order to be able to have something clean air for our kids. I mean, like it's all of that together, right?
You know, I think that's the thing because I've watched since I was a child, I've watched the climate change dramatically.
Sure.
And we live on a piece of land, about 30 odd acres out in Hilliers. And right after the blush of spring, when everything's green, I'm always looking over my shoulders to see if the drought is happening and forest fires can happen. And as you know, that Wesley Ridge one, the back of our property backed onto
Yeah.
an alert, an evacuation alert, and thankfully that one came to nothing. But climate change is real. We used to be the wet coast, and now we're not. We're in jeopardy. And so I'm always thinking future generations. And I don't have any future generations. It ends with John and I and the dogs, right? And then we're gone. But we lost our house to a fire in February. It was an electrical fire.
Yeah.
And my Hamilton Marsh things were in the van, so I could still carry on. But I thought one day we will die and all our stuff will go to a thrift store and
Mhm.
everything changes. And to me, I thought, I've got to preserve Hamilton Marsh. I want to work with people who care and preserve the entire thing because for me, I will feel I have done something for the future and future
This is a
generations.
legacy project without
It
a
is.
question. It absolutely is a legacy
Yeah.
project. And I've been doing programming now for 8 years, and I can tell you that in that 8 years, I've seen all kinds of people come through my doors. But your mission has always been unforgettable for me. It always has been because, when you think, we know it's true, the population that's coming to Vancouver Island now, we're expecting, I don't quote me on these numbers because I don't know if they're correct or not, but I was told somewhere in my world that we were expecting about 6,000 new people coming to Vancouver Island. We're talking about water supplies that are already compromised. I was very involved in supporting through my day job, the Wesley Ridge Fire and the Underwood Fire. Um, I know that yesterday I went to Duncan. The smoke is still in the air, very thick. There was no doubt that I could smell it yesterday. And depending on where the wind is going, you can smell it also in Nanaimo. People in Port Alberni have really struggled with it, and the marsh itself actually is part of that area, right? Port
Yep.
Alberni. I think it hits those three areas, right? It was Nanaimo, Cumberland, Port Alberni, and minutes from Qualicum Beach. Qualicum Bay, of course, was where the lighthouse, the recovery center was for the Wesley Ridge Fire. Banfield is shut down. I mean, I'm sure, well, I thought of you as well because I recalled that you had lost your home, and I thought, oh my God, you must be triggered by this. So close on your back door.
I was more triggered than my husband. I don't exactly understand the male mind that doesn't freak out. And me, I'm thinking, how do we get this trailer we're in off the property? How do we, make sure the dogs and cats don't suck in too much smoke? It compounded my anxiety of already having lost our house to fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet it did. And the marsh itself being the lungs, it took in some of that as well and helped clean some of the air so that you could breathe a little better in that process. So it's almost as if that this is going to come out wrong, and I don't want it to come out too wrong. But when I think about passion projects and things that we love so much, it's like a mother coming to hug you. And I'm sort of feeling like the marsh came back to hug you in some ways. A, because you didn't lose your goodies out of the bag to go and still do work about the marsh from your car, number one, but
Yeah.
also the hug back and you being able to breathe because you knew that that marsh was cleaning the air around you. Like it's very moving to me on so many levels. Um, so how when realized that $7.5 million was going to need to be the cut that needs to come up still within community to get that money from somehow, what did you do? Like, what was your immediate reaction, and what is happening now to help facilitate that $7.5 million coming in?
So I have always wondered, when it came to the fundraising part and not imagining it would be that much,
Yeah.
would we engage? Because we're a very small group, right? Our executive, we're a small group, and how would we do that? We've never done that before, and so we are so well connected. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere region,
I am.
and or Mabry. We're connected with them. We're connected with NALT, Nanaimo Area Land Trust, and we're connected with the local Ducks Unlimited chapter. So we just push on every door.
Yeah.
And um, it's big. And, I always thought, well, the truth is, I know I can't rest until it's done,
Yeah.
right? Can't. I just physically can't. So it has to get done. And yeah, so yeah, a little bit of stressiness because that's more work and lots of it. And but I have to believe that 20 years is not for nothing. So,
No, and but it's also that with these other partnerships, you can leverage, right? A little bit of knowledge goes a long, long way when people understand what's going on. And I think a lot of our listeners probably weren't even aware that we had a marsh so large, right?
yeah.
Depending on how you come into the marsh, people aren't necessarily, how many acres did you say it was, or hectares? 37,
No, 360 hectares.
360 hectares. I mean, that's
And,
huge.
and yeah, because Stanley Park on the mainland
Yeah.
is 401 hectares. So we're
Yeah.
right up there.
So it's nearly the same
Yeah.
size.
And people drive by it every day and they don't even know it's there. But
Yeah.
that's partly because it's private land, right? It's so you can't put up all the signs that say this way to Hamilton Marsh. But a lot of people have heard about it. And back in the day, I don't know, you're too young, I'm sure, but did you ever know of a magazine called Fodors, Fodors?
I
It,
don't. I'm not
it was
familiar with it. No.
it was a premier magazine, and Hamilton Marsh made it into that. And tourists come there, bird watchers go there. It's lots of people, and it's so peaceful. And if you
Mhm.
get a chance to view our video, it's 6 minutes. It's on the website, and it tells you, oh, it's just a beautiful thing. We've got children and etymologists, and I ended at the end. And when I say at the end, I say we can't when I look at all the development, we can't allow this to happen, and that to preserve it looks good on everybody, right? And I'm
Mhm.
looking at that, and I'm going, yes, it does.
Yes, it does, and
Good
it
on
still
everyone,
does. It
you
still does.
know? So yeah, I just really, it is a passion project. Yeah,
You make a perfect transition for us to tell the audience to go grab a piece of paper and a pen so that they
yeah,
can get your website down. So as we're having our conversation, at any time in the next little while, I encourage you to go and grab that because we will indeed have, tell you how to get to more information about the marsh. So, what was the start? There had to have been a moment when you were out with your dogs or out, with John or out in the world, and you went, "What's this?" Like,
yeah.
because, right? Like, so what was the start of it for you?
Well, so we actually did go out, and it's a tiny neighborhood, and I got a call. Some people said, there's ribbons out there, and I think we had seen the ribbons ourselves,
Mhm.
and that was just the beginning of asking questions. And
Mhm.
I asked a lot of questions, and I was told, I don't know if anyone remembers Annette Tanner, but someone told me, you go get Annette Tanner. She'll fix everything. She's an environmental powerhouse. So I reached out to Annette Tanner, and she says, well, she goes, I can't help you with this, but let me tell you where to go and what to do. Best thing she ever did, because then I had to live it, right? I had to do
Yes.
it and feel it. And am I allowed to use the S word on this?
Well, in fairness, it's YouTube and CHLY 101.7 FM, so I would say it's okay.
Okay. So I remember, see, Gail Adrian, who started the Nanaimo Area Land Trust, and
Yeah.
Sarah Bonner, a fellow, I think G, she's a G word. That I mean that in that she's got a degree in nature. I can't believe I can't. Oh, a biologist, actually. She was
Mhm.
a biologist. And someone said to reach out to her, and they both zipped up here right away. And we did a walk of the marsh. And Gail Adrian got me on my points with you need to do a fact sheet, you need to do a declaration of support, you need to do this, this, and this. And of course, dutifully, I did that. And then I remember one day we were going to see, and whether it was Weyerhaeuser or what whoever owned it at the time, we went to see them. And we're sitting in a coffee shop, and I actually need hand holding because even though I'm a redhead, I'm not as fierce as I should be. And so we go, and I said, I'm looking at her, and all I've done to date is ask questions, which to me seems pretty innocent. I looked at her and I said, I don't want to be a shit disturber. And she looks at me and said, honey, that ship has already sailed. Right?
Love
So
it.
uh, yeah, so that was the beginning, and I've never really been. When people call me an activist, it's kind of funny because I always view a stereotype with that.
Mhm.
And but if being active and following a course for a goal is being an activist, then that is what I am.
And you're all in. And clearly 20 years is all in.
There were gaps, and also I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the other agencies working in
Mhm.
tandem. For example, for many years we were under the Friends of French Creek Conservation Society, and that's where I started learning how to write letters. We had two people there, red pen junkies. Like it took
Love
forever
it,
to
love
get
it, love it.
correspondence out. And then the Aerosmith Naturalists, they are a powerhouse, and
Mhm.
they always came alongside for the tours, and they're always talking up Hamilton Marsh. I mean, in these parts, it's well known and well loved.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, we went up with Chief Rakama from Qualicum First Nations. He is a delight, and they support the preserving of the entire 360 hectares. We had Naira. We do at our tours. Naira's there, Ducks Oceanside. I feel really well supported. So while I may be the face of Hamilton Marsh,
Hmm. Lots
there's
of people are
a
involved.
lot of people.
Yeah, you gotta love that. I'm really delighted to hear that First Nation community is part of that as well, right? And you know, their stewardship of nature is so brilliant at best, right? It's so
Yeah,
brilliant. And so to be able to have them involved, I'm curious. I always like to see my cup three-quarters full, not half
yeah,
full, but three-quarters
yeah,
full.
yeah.
Um, but there is that small percentage where there's been those obstacles that get in the way. What was some of the biggest obstacles beyond the $7.5 million? Because that's a huge one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
beyond that, what kind of obstacles were you facing?
Well, I'll tell you when the deal, and I can't tell you if it was 2007 or 2009, the original deal for Hamilton Marsh, when we didn't know it was just for a wetland and a buffer,
Yeah, yeah.
that it was like we just got, my first meeting was in 2005, right? And so say it's 2009 that the deal's going through. I'm thinking, wow, we can change the world. Woo! And then it fell through at the very last minute. And this was not the first flyby. There have been at least four efforts to preserve and save
Wow.
Hamilton Marsh. And I was crushed beyond comprehension because then I thought, well, there is no hope. You can't change the world. And you definitely, for ecological things, I was a mess because
Mhm.
I'm a naive optimist, right? It's working
Mhm.
out for me right now. And and Sandy and Robinson from Friends of French Creek Conservation Society, I said, I cannot do the tour.
Mhm.
And they're a
Mhm.
lot older than me. They jumped in and got it all organized and just did it. And that was one tour that I had trouble with. So that's an obstacle. Um, I think another one is not being at the table when
Mhm.
all the conversations are going on because you're flying blind.
For
And
sure.
I know that the last couple of years, because I caught wind that there were conversations, but never knowing what they'd be because they're in camera, I just told our team, this is what we do. We educate everyone, we show them the visuals, and we tell them why we have to preserve the entire 360 hectares. So if a wetland and a buffer come up, there will be the will to preserve more. So, and I think that when you can do that in a fog, you
Mhm.
not in a fog, but the cone of silence, right? And you
Yeah.
can still go forward. I think that's really great. And so when we heard the 360 hectares, I mean, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And other obstacles are in this area, Oceanside, for volunteers, it's kind of tapped out. Anyone I know who's a volunteer is like 70 odd or plus, and they're volunteering for three things, right? And they're juggling
Mm.
all the time. So sometimes getting volunteers is a challenge.
So that's a great shout out to people who are wanting to get involved in something that is so magnificent. Volunteering for this would be a really big deal for sure. Yeah. I'm curious as well about the childlike awe that comes with falling in love with a bog and that area. So, how do the children react when they're there? Do they get an opportunity to really get into the understanding of why this part of nature is so unique?
If be it far from me to refer you to the video, but our video on Hamilton Marsh has exactly that. A bunch of kids going through from school, and the all that they show is just amazing. That school's located pretty close to Hamilton Marsh, and
Mhm.
so it matters a lot. That's Aerosmith Independent School, and they also at our tours they do the bug show. So
Oh, what's the bug show? Oh, I
oh,
love that.
they call it bug bingo, and
Bug bingo.
I know.
No way. I
I
love
know.
that.
And so they
Wow.
show, yeah, they just collect in little white containers insects and you
Yeah.
get to identify them and that kind of thing.
How fun is
Um,
that? Oh my God,
yeah,
my grandkids would die for that. That would be
right.
so fun. Yeah.
And we used to have kids would become a certified bug detective.
Oh, lovely. How fabulous.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. And they'd get certificates, right?
Oh.
So yeah, no, so we do absolutely do what we can. And this year we have done more tours than normal. It's usually just an annual tour, but this year um, we had the May 10th one, which is the Brant Festival one.
Mhm.
A couple of different classes reached out to me, so we walked them through the tours. And it's less when it's just like
Yeah.
when I can fit them in,
Oh,
that's
for
it.
sure.
And then we were very graced to have two people from Qualicum First Nations do there were only 10 people could go on each tour, and there were only two tours. And
Wow.
Jesse Rakama and Carrie Reed walked people down to the dock and shared a lot about what the nature means to First Nations. And that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and so then we have one coming up now. It's on the Sunday. I think it's the 12th of October. It's
Mhm.
Thanksgiving weekend, I believe. If that's a Sunday of Thanksgiving, we're going to have another tour, and we're going to work to get all our partners out because they're worth finding out about as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, so and it is like if anyone looks like our website's pretty comprehensive,
Mhm.
but if anyone wants to go, there's a map and it tells you how to get there, and they're welcome to go. I like to remind people that it's still private land owned by Mosaic/Island Timberlands, and when they use it at their own risk,
Yeah, of course.
you know.
Of course. It's not a public park as that goes.
As that goes. But it's
Yeah.
clearly used by the public and
Of course, of course.
yeah.
It's three, I mean, it's huge. Of course, people use it. It's perfection, right?
No.
Um, and so my question next to you is what's your favorite part about the marsh? Like what, I mean, it's all, encompassed, I'm sure, but is there one thing about it that you love specifically about the marsh?
I love its inner workings. I
Yeah.
love that it sits there and does things that we can't even see it do. I
Hmm.
love that. It's magical. I think I've been in four films at least regarding Hamilton Marsh, and
Hmm.
every time I'm more and more impressed.
No kidding.
Oof, when you fall in love with a wetland, it's hard to think any other way. I
I,
mean,
I resonate with that so well.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I still recall, as we talked about the Brant Festival, right? So for our viewer or for our listeners and our viewers, I'm curious, would you remind us what the Brant Festival was?
Yeah, so the Brand Festival is still going. I did it for 5 years, but now it's being managed by the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere Region.
Mhm.
It's a spring celebration of nature, and it's focused in Oceanside, and it celebrates the migration of the Brant goose, which is not to be confused with the Canada goose. The Brant goose is a sea goose with a distinct little bow tie and cackle. And yeah, they travel from Mexico up to Alaska, and we're an important feeding stop. And
Mhm.
so celebrating nature around their migration is the point of it. It's been going on for many years, 30 years.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a long time now, long time now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's also 22 other birds that I'm to understand, 22 different species of birds I read on one of the websites, and
Mhm.
probably more.
Are we talking Hamilton Marsh or are we?
Yes, yeah, at Hamilton
Oh,
Marsh.
yeah. Over 100 species of bird.
Oh, oh, oh.
110 or 120 species of bird have been seen there. They're different from the brant because the brant travel the
Mhm.
ocean, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Over 120 species of bird has been seen there. Um, I believe it's the American bittern will be traveling through shortly. But yeah, over 120 species of bird have been seen there. And it's kind of funny because whenever we do our tours, right, everyone goes, oh, 120. Oh, I can't wait to see what's there. And the only ones that show up are Canada geese.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Uh,
But birds are interesting because sometimes a lot of birders identify it by the sound,
yeah.
right? Not the sight. And
Mhm.
it depends on your time of day and all of that.
And all of that. And then is there a bird bingo as well as a bug bingo?
No, no, because it's just a Canada geese that show up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, but the Aerosmith Naturalists do a Christmas bird count. I believe that that's part of their area of doing it. But yeah. It's
How wonderful.
yeah,
It's a really good time to tell people we're about halfway through the show already. And so, why don't we tell people how they can find out more about Hamilton Marsh?
sure. So first off, what you really want to do is go to our website and sign up for our newsletter because then we'll also be able to update you on the tours and things that are upcoming
Mhm.
and or the fundraising. So signing up for the newsletter is key. Um, the website is pretty darn good if I do say so myself because I made it.
Way to go. Love it.
Yeah, and you'll find the different reports of the different birds, and also there's fungi. I believe that report's up there, and the dragonfly report.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So going to Hamilton Marsh, we recently had two people come from UNESCO, two young people, and I'm so used to trying to persuade people why we need the whole thing and water, wildlife, and all this. But there's a bunch of people who don't need persuading, and we took these two people down the trail, and they go, "Oh, this is spectacular! I just
Right?
love it." And
Yeah.
it like so, I made sure that one of the gals at Mabry fired off an email to them to let them know that it's getting done, give or take some funding.
Mm,
So
that's so great.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
website then is Nanaimo
Woo. Hamilton Wetlands.
Hamilton Wetlands,
.com.
hamiltonwetlands.com.
Yeah,
And
that's
for
it.
those that are watching us on our YouTube channel, thanks for so much for tuning in. I will put all this information down in the chat box so you'll be able to access it directly from there. I love that there's somebody out there with a big sign that says we need to keep this. And whether it's you don't see yourself as an advocate or not, there's something to be said of really having a passion for something that is larger than ourselves, right? When you think about all those birds and all of those wonderful things that are there, going back just a little bit to the fires. I remember I lived on the mainland for a number of years, for most of my life actually, and not far from where I lived, there was the Delta bog, and when the
Oh,
Delta, I don't know if you remember, but the Delta bog went on fire, and it took something like 15 years to finally put out all of the fires in the bog.
that
So
that's Burns Bog, right?
Burns Bog,
Yeah,
exactly. It was Burns Bog. And so, how similar is Burns? And I'm not bringing it up for the forest fires because we already
yeah,
know that that's what's
yeah.
happened, but I'm curious about, the nature of those bogs when they do have a climactic effect that comes to them. What does that ripple effect look like?
That's outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I just don't know. And I just hope that nothing like that happens here.
Yeah, you and me both, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
but
I
I
know that
don't.
Bog was a bit of a struggle, but the other thing that I'm curious about, and this sounds really, really weird, it's completely off topic, but it's on
Fine.
topic. I remember being a young girl in high school, and I read a book about bogs, and it was the bog people that had risen, right?
Yeah.
So animals and things that were lost in the bog. I have never really spent a lot of time in a bog.
Oh,
So I've been around bogs, but I haven't really spent time in the trueness of the bog.
yeah.
Are there moments when you ever feel a little nervous there, when you sort of feel the spirit around you? Is it spooky at any time? Because Halloween's coming, right?
Oh,
Gotta
yeah.
find
Halloween's
gotta
coming.
find some of that spook, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any spookiness in the bog, do you find?
I'm usually there in the daylight, so I haven't really felt that. I don't. One thing I just really feel there is sacred, because it's
Right.
such a sacred space. And some, I love it when the frogs start singing and the birds start tweeting, and I love it. So yeah, never spooky, just sacred, and sacred can be a very deep, intense feeling.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's what it does for me. It makes it sacred. And to play any part in preserving it is
I resonate with the sacred more than I do the scary part. It was just a scary book that I had read that talked about, the ghost
oh
of the bog, and that's so I had to bring it up just because I had to bring it up.
yeah.
From a perspective of saving the bog, what does that look like? What would you hope would happen to help save the bog?
Well, I'd like to get more press on Hamilton Marsh.
Hmm.
I think that's really important because you can't save what you don't love. So
Hmm.
I think that's really important.
Hmm.
I'm hoping because it's Ardean Parks that is getting uh, obtaining it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there will be very limited human access so that all the nesting birds and all the wildlife is well protected. Uh,
Hmm.
and I've probably forgotten your question already.
No, no, you answered it actually
Yeah,
perfectly,
good.
because that to me that's a big part of it, is like the funding is going to go to help preserve the bog in its natural state rather than turn it into a provincial park or something like that.
Right.
Although we have a lot of provincial parks on Vancouver Island that are in beautiful,
Yeah.
still maintain that the what they're the origin of the forest is, right? So I would imagine that having the bog saved in the same way would be, or the marsh saved in the way would be also very important. Um,
Yes. And I should tell you a little something about the marsh historically.
sure.
So technically there wouldn't be a trail and there wouldn't be a dock if School District 69 and McMillan Blodell didn't come up with a land use agreement for an outdoor classroom.
Oh.
And so and that was many years ago, like the other century. And they did that, and they had a dock at the time. It was glorious, and now it's kind of weathered and worn. And there was also a bird uh, lookout.
Mhm.
And so I look at that, right? And I'm constantly trying to dig up stories from the past because I know,
Mhm.
because it's not just us, because I know I'd say it's probably been 50 years that people have tried to preserve it. And
Mhm.
it was at one point on the Gold 2 protected area strategy with the NDP. It was the sensitive ecosystem inventory. I understand community people fought to get Hamilton Marsh included in
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And I know that the old timers, just so you know, you'll know if you're talking to an old timer if they call it Hamilton Swamp.
Oh, yes.
Hamilton Swamp. And one more point, Pheasant Glen, which is Pheasant Glen Golf Course, is kitty corner to Hamilton Marsh across the highway. And
Mhm.
that was big Hamilton Marsh. This one at 36 hectares of wetland is little Hamilton Marsh. So you can imagine what the ecosystem had been like, right?
No kidding.
I know.
So for the big Hamilton Marsh that was big as it once was, do they put houses all through there, or they
Um,
used it for other?
So it was a golf course,
Yeah.
and they converted it into a golf course, and I believe there is some kind of development coming up on that,
Mhm.
which is tragic.
Yeah.
I have found that the 360 hectares is my max, so I have the energy to try to protect, and
Understood. I mean,
yeah,
360 hectares is pretty,
significant.
it is. It's significant for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really
yeah,
is.
but
But
yeah.
when you, I mean, this you've been driving this for a long time. Um, and and I'm curious about how the government has received this push from you over and over again. Have you had some good partnerships with them, or has it been difficult to sway them for the saving of this
Actually, I think the nature of the privacy of these negotiations makes everything challenging. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will tell you that that we have written letters to everyone,
yeah,
and Josie Osborne, it's in her area,
yeah.
and also the lady who does Qualicum. Oh, I can't remember her name, but they both have been engaged behind the scenes, reaching out to the landowners.
That's good.
Uh, yeah, I just need to have her name. It's gone from my head. And then we also wrote a letter to ECCC a little while back, and of course they had not heard of it, and so we kind of gave them contact information so that they could reach out because they too were in awe
Mm-hmm.
of the wetland. And so, and also, I don't think there's been a local politician who's ever felt safe in my presence at a public gathering because they're storming over and they know what I'm gonna say. And so,
Right?
but yeah, but I get a feeling a lot gets done behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I do believe our pressure, like I describe it this way, because if we're not at the table, we're pinching the bums of all the people who make the decisions, going go 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 go.
Yeah, yeah.
And and the one thing I shouldn't tell you, and I probably shouldn't say that you can edit if you like. I've always had this not quite veiled threat of thousands of naked seniors tied to trees around the perimeter, right? And maybe that was
That out. Sorry. I'm not editing that out because you know what? I think that would be a very brilliant idea. And I do think that a lot of people, you'd be surprised. I have a very good friend who's passed on now. Her name was Dorothy Angst, and she started something similar to that to preserve some land over on Gabriola. And really, I think I think there's wisdom in that. I really do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, it was kind of cute, and I'm a little bit too graphic on this, but I thought, pulling young people off of trees is easy, but seniors are stretchy.
Yes,
It
they
can
are.
take a
But
while.
if you think about it, anything that was going on in the 60s that we're dealing with today has been this generation of us pushing it and moving the
Yes,
dial, regardless if it's women's rights or
yeah,
environmental security or anything,
yeah.
it really is that timeline. We tend to get things done when we're a little bit, long in the
Right.
tooth, as they say.
Yes, yes. Yes, for sure. And I think what I love, one of the gifts that Hamilton Marsh has given me, besides an awareness that we are not separate from nature, like
Yes.
water
Yeah.
is for us, the wildlife, and on and on. Um, Besides that, it's introduced me to a completely different class of human being. And
Mhm.
these are the volunteers, the doers, the movers, the shakers, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And the kind-hearted
mhm,
and beneficent. Can't
mhm.
quite come up with the right word, but I don't even know how interesting my life would be if I hadn't discovered Hamilton Marsh and all the like-minded people out there.
Well,
So that was a gift.
I so understand. When I think about, like I said, we've talked about it already, what you went through with the fires and your own fire and losing everything you own,
Yes, everything
everything.
except the woman cave. The woman cave survived, but
Oh, yay for the
oh,
woman cave.
I was gone. I know. I know.
There was a little spirit of the marsh in the woman cave.
Maybe. Well, that's where some of the stuff was stored. So
No
yay.
kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I think that puts an emphasis, though, on the desire to save something like this from natural disaster or human disaster, one way or the other. I can see where there's been some warmth in that. And you're right, there is a certain class of people. We all, I think, as human beings, with the exception of very, very small percentage of people, we all love life. We love animals. We love, I don't particularly love spiders, but I don't mind bugs, right? Like I don't particularly love snakes, but I sure do love salamanders and frogs and other creatures.
Yeah.
So I know that we have this connection to nature as a human being.
Yeah.
And the idea of what happens to places where where their home is taken, right?
Yeah.
It's
All the time.
all the time. And we wonder why, bears are, walking up Main Street. Well, we've taken their space is
Yeah.
why, right?
That's
And so,
exactly true.
so what is it being an advocate, although you are, you not self-professed, but sort of kind of are an
Yeah,
advocate?
yeah. Oh, I am definitely an
You're an
advocate. Yeah.
advocate. So like own that. What does it mean to you to be an advocate? What drives that initiative for you to say we have to save this marsh? The
You,
advocacy piece.
you're gonna make me cry.
I'm sorry. You're not my first guest who's cried.
I am like we live on a wild piece of land and we see the bear, the cougar, and the elk and all the spiders and all the things and we leave our place wild, even though at the expense of a mountain view. We do it because to me it's the only piece of land I actually can control, right? And when I die, it's game over for this piece of land. And I despair for future generations based on climate and consumerism. And I will not say I'm not a consumer, right? I
We all are.
like
Yeah.
duality, right? And
Mhm.
I worry about future generations. I really, really do. And the disconnect from nature that they have. And we've seen that it is pivotal to mental health is being out in nature.
Mhm.
And so I'm driven because I feel for the wildlife. And 360 hectares technically in this area is a drop in the bucket of what really needs to be preserved.
Of course.
I will feel I have done something, and
Yeah.
it's something meaningful for both future generations and for wildlife. And that to me, it's like I thought about it. I think I mentioned it earlier.
Mhm.
I'll be gone. It will all be gone, right? But if I can do something like that for future generations. And my name doesn't even remotely have to be attached to it. I can sort of go in peace because I've fulfilled my mission, which is to preserve that land for water, wildlife in the future.
I am very proud to be your friend.
Oh,
And I was following your hidden camera in your woods
ah,
where the creatures on
yeah,
Facebook.
yeah.
I have to say it was one of the highlights of my day would be, oh, she's got another, there's another little film up, right? And because it's like, it's the camera is in an odd, like it's not, it's in an odd spot. And then all of a sudden there's a creature and you don't know what the creature's going to be. It can be everything. What was your favorite animal that you saw on your own film?
I have two.
You can have
I have
10.
two. I have two that I love, and it flies in the face of a lot of things. The first one,
Mm.
cougars. I love
Yeah,
watching the cougars go through. And last October, I figured it was about as exciting as it could get as the camera got pictures of cougars watching us set up cameras, right? And I thought, whoa, we've never seen that before. And I thought that was as exciting as it gets. It was many years before we saw our first elk go through.
yeah,
And I was thrilled because the neighbor behind me, he used to live there, was George. And George would tell his wife, he'd say, there's an elk. I know there's an elk. I saw an elk. And she went, oh, pish posh, George.
right, right.
And then we caught it on our camera and we caught it a few times. And I think there might have been two. I have not seen it for a while,
Mm.
but that's my super duper excitement is when the elk goes through. But
I
we,
can I can tell you that I had never seen an elk until last year, and I was off doing something. I had to go into Yubo, and I was passing through to go to Dididat Nation, and I saw my very first elk. I see signs for elk everywhere,
yeah,
but I had never actually seen one.
yeah,
Holy mackerel, they are huge. So
yes,
I can see where, that woman is going, pish posh.
yes.
We're going pish posh. When you see it, you see it, right? And so congratulations on. And what did she say actually when she saw your film? Did she?
So of course I let them know. I said, George, and I can't recall a response, but I said, there you go, George. You're not losing it. There it
No,
is.
there it
And
is.
and some of our records of Hamilton Marsh talk about elk, but they've never been spotted, only the hoof prints or the whatever prints. Yeah,
Um,
that's all they've seen. And yeah, we also get martins. Martins were, and that's like, I won't say weasel, but little
mhm, yeah.
part fox part. And
But they
they
do kind of
kind of,
look a little like a weasel. Like they have
yeah,
that.
they're
Yeah.
long-bodied
Yeah,
and
very
uh,
long, like an otter almost, but not.
yeah, so they showed up quite a lot, I'd say, in the last 3 years. We
Mhm,
see them all, and then I saw one crossing to Hamilton Marsh. I was stunned,
mhm,
and so that was exciting because I heard generally it's a rare thing to see one, but now I'm kind of wondering what's going on because it's not so rare. And it's the same with cougars. There's been so much more cougar interaction with livestock and things, and it's sad. It's hard, but.
It is. It is,
I'm still
especially.
on the side of the cougar. I know that's terrible.
No, no, I'm on the side of a cougar as well. I had an encounter several years ago. It was literally, arms, a little bit more than arm's distance
Yeah.
away, but from me to the tree, like not
Yeah.
far. I had taken my ex-husband and I were walking through the woods and I had slipped on a tree trunk. And so I hadn't fallen over, but I'd kind of knocked my hip a little bit. So my husband came behind me and just sort of put his hand on my hip to say, like, are you okay? And out of
Yeah.
the corner of my eye, I saw something kind of coming through a bush, and I thought it was a coyote.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're like, I went, oh, what's that? And I turned around, and then out came the cougar, and the head was like massive, massive head. My ex-husband was a seventh dan international karate champion, so this man knew kata, and so he started to shake, and really shout out to the cougar while I backed up off the
Yeah.
bluff that I was on down into the
Yeah.
other area. And then once that the cougar had turned around and gone away, he and I hightailed out of there. But it was a magnificent experience, and it was the most magnificent creature I've ever seen. So
Yes.
I'm with you on that. Like I love the cougars, and what I understand is they for every I want to say it's 100 miles. There's one cougar that has the territory of 100 miles.
Ah,
And so if there's more than one, it's for mating or for their children, like their cubs and such. But I'm fascinated by them. I think they're incredibly beautiful animals.
yeah. I think that, we've got a cat named Smudge who survived the
That's
fire,
right. Smudge was missing, but
right?
Smudge is back. Yeah.
I know he was gone for a while and he's back. But just based on his cat behavior, like every night he gets into bed and pounds John on his head, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, otherwise, he's an adorable cat. And it's like, yeah, I love cougars, but I don't want to run into one in case they're in a mood, right? A cat.
Yeah, you don't want to. And they have been known to, they've been known. They were, I mean, when Andy and I went through, it was dusk, so it was feeding time, right? They were
Yeah, yeah.
looking, it had been stalking us. And about 3 or 4 days later, it was seen a second time, and it was reported to conservation. And it was my understanding that they took the cougar out of the region.
Oh,
Which was good. I later heard that they shot the cougar, which bothered me a lot because it was like, again, we're invading on their space. So why should that beautiful creature lose its life because, human decided to, wander on through. But
yeah. Well, my understanding is that with cougars, they're never relocated.
no,
It's
no.
usually at the end
They
of.
find their way back to the region that they have. Yeah,
No, no, I just think that it doesn't work for them to relocate like the people conservation. I think they just
yeah.
bears can be. I don't quote me. I'm not an expert.
No, and I do make that statement as well on behalf of, this is my situation, what I'm
Yeah.
personally believe. This has nothing to do with CHLY 101.7 FM or YouTube or anybody else. This is just, this is how I see the world.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
I own that. And yeah, don't call a CHLY and say about cougars because Kathy said something that she shouldn't have said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying, Carrie. We want to try to be mindful of nature and that we're part of the ecosystem as human beings, yes. But the ecosystem is a lot more than just us.
Oh, it so is. It so is. And we are don't I shouldn't even say the word I thought and thought. No, I can't go there, but I can say that we personally have indicated with our really impacted the world with our prolific numbers and our ability to wreck nature or take it over as if we're the
Yeah,
only people in it.
it's so true. Human beings, we tend to do things for the almighty dollar and not necessarily for, sharing the wealth. And that's where I think we could do better as human beings. I definitely do. So listen, we're coming close to the end of the program. We're not quite there yet, but we're almost there. So I'm just going to take a very fast station identification, a couple of reminders of what's going on in community, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to have our final conversation of the day. So if you have just tuned in to our show here on CHLY 101.7 FM, thank you so very much. I love it when you guys come every Monday at 1 o'clock. And we really, really do love giving you programming that makes sense to you. We can share little bits of wisdom with you from our community members, from agencies, from, friends and family, and those people that, we love very, very much within this wonderful space that we have here on Vancouver Island. We also do think it's really important that we know that kids are going back to school, clubs and things like that are starting. And I'm a big believer that during the month of September, October, November, and I do that for the fall, right? So the fall is when you get to try something new in your life and seek out something that you've never done before. And so I invite you to think about what Carrie and I have been talking about today about Hamilton Marsh. If you are interested in supporting in any way, your $5 could very well help. So please consider if you want to make a donation to their organization, that would be great. Hamilton, let me get the thing again. It's the Hamilton Wetlands and Forest Preservation Society, HWFPS. We're going to give you the website again in just a moment. We also encourage you, please don't forget to watch our show on Rogers Television. We have a new season 5, episode 1 is airing now all over Vancouver Island. So please enjoy it. I've got some great guests and wonderful volunteers that help support that program. program. Don't forget as well to read our article in the Nanaimo and Voyager magazine. You'll find my name, Kathy Holmes. I'm the host of all three of these programs, and I'm delighted to bring you this information. So thank you so much for tuning in whatever capacity you do. You can also hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So I'm happy that fall is coming because it means the forest fires will hopefully be a lot less. But with fall and winter comes other things that we need to think about. So do just take your time and enjoy every single bit of the season while you can. We'll give you some more updates of what's happening on every program. So just thanks again for tuning in. Back to the program now. Am I saying your name properly? Ceri Peasey,
Uh,
Peasey, right?
Easy. Yeah.
It is PCs. I always want to put an R in there, but I know there's no R. When I read it, I see that there's no R, but my tongue wants to go Piercy. PC. Carrie
Yeah.
PC.
Carrie
Carrie,
P.
it's been fabulous having you on the show so far. I really am glad that you're with us. I love the passion that you have for Hamilton Marsh. I also love the courage that you have for all the things you've been through this year. You're one of the most courageous people that I know in Nanaimo. I think about you often when I remember what happened for you and for your family, you and John and the dogs and the cat, and I'm so glad the cat's back. I don't get to see you every day or anything like that. That is true, but you are in my thoughts quite honestly on a regular basis. So I'm just glad you're okay.
Oh, thanks. Maybe if you're ever in the Qualcomm area, I'd be happy to walk you through Hamilton Marsh
Yeah.
or on October 12th.
I think that's a great idea. So let's tell everybody about October 12th. As we're closing out, tell me about October 12th. What's happening that day one more time?
So if I have the date correct, it's Thanksgiving long weekend and it's on the Sunday. I believe that's October 12th. And we're going to have tours of Hamilton Marsh. Details will follow and definitely sign up for our newsletter on our website. And then you'll know exactly what's what. We hope to have a lot of partners in place and to make it an extremely interesting tour.
I have no doubt it will be. I am away the Thanksgiving Sunday, so I won't be
Oh,
able to be there on the 12th, but that doesn't mean I can't come and do it another day.
yes.
HamiltonWetlands.com is how you can find Carrie. I think that's just fantastic. Carrie, as you know, my favorite part of the program is here, and that is actually the end of the program, not because it's the end of the program, but because I love life lessons and I love wisdom. And I'm curious if you could share one thing or two things even about, what has inspired you or what people need to know about Hamilton Marsh or your journey that you've had to bring you 20 years of advocacy to save it. What might that look like for you?
Okay, so here's the interesting life lesson I've had. I struggle with ADHD and also emotional things. And I think that my big lesson is you don't have to have all the pieces in place to move forward, and
Mm.
you don't have to do it like everybody else who has different resources. You just keep showing up. And that's the lesson. If you care about it, keep showing up and always move forward, even if you don't know what that next step is.
I love that. It's true. Just keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other, one moment at a time. And before you know it, your dreams have come true.
And lastly, network like crazy.
Yes.
That really helps.
Yes. Network, 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 network. It
Yeah,
has been great having you on the show today. Thank you so very much. I'd love to have you on our Act 3 television program. So you and I offline will arrange that. Make
sounds
sure
good.
that you can come back on and share your wisdom with more people in our community.
Perfect.
In the meanwhile, folks, that's it for Act 3 for today. I hope that you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. I hope you have a spectacular rest of your day. Head over, mark your calendar, October the 12th, get down to the marsh. Check it out. A wonderful day to spend with the family, and certainly something to be thankful for, being that it's Thanksgiving weekend. So, thanks again, Ceri Peasey, and we'll see you next time on Act 3.